Memory is my absolute favorite thing to teach because it's life-changing. I can tell you that's why I got to Oxford. That's why other students that I've taught have gone to some of the finest universities in the entire world. That is why I've literally taught a number of students who've wound up finishing school the top student in their country, literally. And inevitably, when a student suddenly says, oh my word, I got straight distinctions, oh my word, I got into that amazing university, oh my word, I got that incredible scholarship, usually the thing that they say that changed their life was memory. And so I'm going to explain very quickly how human memory tends to work. This is probably going to be the biggest improvement from what I managed to give in class because I've got a little bit more time to do this. But let's think common sense. What is human memory? If we just think, okay, well, what does it mean to remember? I would say it's about getting information, storing that information, and then retrieving that information at will. So it's the getting, the storage, and the retrieval of data. And generally, that's what psychological research says. There are different forms of it: short-term memory, long-term memory, echoic memory, iconic memory. There are various things, but in very, very simple terms, getting information, storing information, and retrieving information is what memory consists of. So now let's use our common sense. Where do human beings get information from? The internet! No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, how do humans get it? Through what means? And the answer is obvious. It's the senses. We touch things, we smell things, we taste things, we hear things, and particularly we see things. Human beings get data through our senses. There's something they're called sensors. It's how you sense things. So memory must be sensory. And in fact, that's exactly the case. When you ask someone to recall something which was a vivid sensory experience, generally speaking, they don't battle with it too much. Think of the last holiday that you went on that you really enjoyed. And suddenly the beach is in front of you again. Maybe the buffet that was amazing is there. When the coconut hit your granny, whatever, it's suddenly available to you because you sensed it, you saw it, you tasted it, you heard it, whatever the case might be. Now, of all of the senses, one of them is neurologically dominant for the vast majority of the population. Now, excluding about between 1 and 2% of the population who either are blind or have a condition called aphantasia, the vast majority of people, so we're talking 98 or more percent of people, have sight as their dominant neurological sense. And here's the extraordinary thing. If ever you've been told that you only use 10% of your brain, you can giggle at the person who said it because it's absolutely not true. Now, one of the things I studied at Oxford was neuroscience. And while I was there, a statistic I learned which blew my mind was human beings use conservatively 50% of the nerves in their brain, probably over 60% of the nerves in their brain, for visual processing. If you didn't have to do anything else with your brain other than the visual stuff in your mind, you would still require over half of your brain matter, almost 2/3, some people would argue. And you might be thinking, that's not possible. Like, I'm much smarter than that. Looking can't use half of my brain. That's only one visual process. There are a lot of other visual processes. For instance, abstract thought is normally a visual process because you have to imagine what you're thinking about. And let's think of the word imagine. It comes from the word image. So imagination and imaging is also a visual process. Dreaming is a visual process. When you're planning what you're going to do on the weekend, that also requires imagination. Those are all visual processes. So people tend to remember things much easier if they are visual in nature. And you already know this, actually. For instance, think about a movie that you enjoyed. Now, if you were paying attention while the movie was on, not if you drift, that's different. Obviously, if you're watching the movie and are falling asleep, clearly you won't remember it. But if you were watching the movie and actually paying attention to it, then of course, in 70 years' time, you will still remember that Thanos clicks. Sorry, spoiler alert, okay? You're still going to remember that. It's not difficult, and you don't have to watch a movie 6 times to remember that that's what happens. And yet, that's how students study. They read it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. That's absolutely ridiculous because ordinarily the way that we learn is now, by the way, repetition can contribute to learning. Obviously, if you do something multiple times, it does deepen your level of knowing the thing. But do not get the idea that I'm saying do your work repetitively. That is absolutely not a smart way of studying because ordinarily you can do something once And provided it stimulated you enough on a sensory level, you've probably learned it. So that holiday that you went on, you didn't have to go to the same resort 11 times before you remember where your room was or where the beach was. You do it once and it sticks. If something is sufficiently sensorially stimulating to you, it sticks in your mind straight away. And of all of the senses, if something is sufficiently visual, it stimulates your mind more than anything else. Now that brings up a very obvious question. Well, how does that help me at school? Because at school I'm not going to the beach and I'm not watching a movie. I am listening to the teacher's words and I'm reading words in the textbook. You know, these like awful little black and white squiggles on the page. So how does the fact that I'm visual help me when most of the work that I've been given isn't visual? And the answer to this is going to come out of a clever question that a cheeky girl once asked me. I really liked her, actually, so let me not diss. Well, I'll diss, but with a lot of affection. She suddenly said, sir, like, I think that you're wrong, because it's true that I don't remember what the teacher tells me, like, after 2 minutes, warm, is going past my ear, but I do remember what my friends tell me. Like, I remember what my friends tell me, and surely that's not visual memory, that's auditory memory, because I'm listening to them, so, you're wrong. Now, I agree with one thing that girl says. I disagree with the rest. Here's the thing that I do agree with. For instance, you remember your friend's gossip. You've noticed that. You might forget what the teacher was saying about DNA replication, but when your friend is talking about the person that they met on Friday, that stuff is there until the day that you die, like cement. Now, the reason, however, that is the case is what that girl's missing. I would say that the reason you're remembering is not auditory, it is visual. It's because of something that you do as the person speaks to you. And what is that? I think you've got it. You're imagining what they're speaking about. You're taking their words and you're turning their words into a picture in your mind. And afterwards, what you remember is not the sequence of words they've given you. It's the picture that you've turned the words into. And by the way, I can literally feel some people thinking, that's total rubbish. I do not go around picturing what people tell me. That's garbage. So I'll prove to you that you do. Have you ever noticed a friend will suddenly tell you a story like, oh my word, you have no idea. I went out on Friday, met this chick. She's like insanely hot. She's like Meghan Markle, only hotter. And the problem is that I was really so I spilled a drink on her, and I'm really embarrassed because she's like so hot and I'm like so clumsy. But still, she like really likes me. You're gonna meet her on Friday. She is whoa. Have you noticed that on Friday, when you finally get to meet the hotter version of Meghan Markle, your response is often, ew? Have you noticed that? Now, obviously, I'm exaggerating. She's probably not Chewbacca, but she doesn't look the way that you expect she's going to look. Or you go to a friend's house for the first time. It never looks the way that you think it's going to look. It's always like, whoa, this place is bigger than I thought. Or gosh, that place is smaller. You always get a shock of some sort. It's not hectic. You don't suddenly say, oh, wrong house. I mean, obviously, you know that you don't actually know what the house looks like. But you get a bit of a surprise. You know, I didn't think you were going to have a swimming pool. Or, oh, I had no idea it was a 9-floor house, or whatever the case might be. That surprise that you get proves that you've pictured something different to reality. It proves that you have made up an image in your mind. Otherwise, you wouldn't get surprised. There would be nothing to be surprised about. So that proves that you do make pictures. And last thing, in case you think, I'm still not convinced. Well, if I tell you, oh, I can't wait to get back to my beach house in 2 days to see my 2 dogs. I've been missing them so badly. You cannot help it. You're literally imagining my 2 dogs. You're imagining what my beach house looks like. And as a result, you're able to store the information. That's the key thing. You're able to store the information because you've taken it from just words and turned it into concepts that you can grab. That's why people picture stuff. We imagine it because it gives us an idea onto which we can hold, which also contributes to concentration, you see. Often when a friend says you're not listening anymore, in other words, you've lost concentration, it's because you've stopped picturing what they say. Do you see? So if you picture what someone says, often the information will stick without you even trying to remember it. Now, I'm going to give an example. I'm going to give you approximately 35 geography facts. This is a very common demonstration I give, this particular one. 35 geography facts in about 3 minutes. Now, if someone did that and then quizzed you, what sort of percentage do you think you would get? It's normally 40% maximum. There are some people who do very well, but generally speaking, about 40% is what you can kind of see as a likely good result. All I want you to do is imagine what I'm talking about. It would help for you to close your eyes, by the way. Strange little trick. If you are right-handed, look up and to the right, not with your face, just with your eyes. You can still close your eyes, but keep your eyes angled in that position. If you're left-handed, up and to the left, but keep your eyes closed, okay? It helps the brain make pictures, basically. And I want you to imagine the following. Imagine that it's 500 million years ago, and we're in space looking to Earth. But there's only one giant continent, and it's in the shape of a pan because we call it Pangaea. At the south end of the continent, you see Africa and South America squished together like puzzle pieces. And in the middle of Africa is a huge inland ocean which stretches hundreds of kilometers. That ocean evaporates over time. Poof, it's gone. And at the bottom where the ocean was is lots of sea sand. I mean, there would be sea sand there. There was a sea, obviously. Walk up to the sea sand and touch it. Oh my word, it's turned into stone. It's like been hardened by the weight of the water for so many millions of years and drying out in the sun, and it's become stone made of sand. I'll call it sandstone. And the sandstone, which covers lots of Africa, are three colors mostly: orange, yellow, and white. Orange, yellow, and white sandstone covers lots of Africa. Now go back to space and look at Pangaea. It starts to split apart approximately 182 million years ago. It begins to rip apart about 182 million years ago. And what that does is that it cracks the crust underneath Africa when South America and Africa separate. They separate very violently, and it cracks the crust under Africa, leading to the largest eruption in the history of the world. Over millions of years, lava spills out, and it covers the sandstone in a grey rock, which we call basalt. Imagine a sheep with salt. Basalt, can you imagine? And that basalt layer is 2 kilometers thick. That is crazy tall, guys. That's 2.5 times the height of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. It's crazy tall. And it stretches to two parts of the African continent especially. Ethiopia and a province called KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. KwaZulu-Natal is where the Zulu tribe are from. So I want us to go to this part of South Africa where the Zulu people are from, and you see this huge basalt layer. And it's not too far from the coast. It's only a couple of 100 kilometers in from the coast. What then happens is rain comes in off the coast and it starts to eat away the rock. Imagine raindrops with teeth. Munch, munch, it eats the rock, exposing the sandstone layer with lots of caves. So I want you to go to the caves, and I want you to see suddenly inside the caves are some people. They look like they're made of sand because they were called the sand people. Can you imagine these sand people? They also used to call themselves the Bushmen sometimes because they'd live in the bush, and that was an equivalent way of describing themselves. So the San or the Bushmen used to use the caves for shelter, but also religious ceremonies, like they would trance and dance around the fires, and they would paint on the walls of the caves. More rock art has been found there than anywhere else on Earth. About 40,000 items of rock art are found there, and the number one creature that they painted was an antelope called an eland. And they painted it a lot because they thought it was holy because of the color of its skin. It had a honey-colored skin. So you can imagine this antelope with honey-colored skin. And they're drawing it on the caves with like halos and wings or something to remind you that they thought it was holy. Now let's leave the cave and look up at the dark grey cap above. It has been left with incredible shapes. Gigantic cliffs. Some of the biggest cliffs in the world are found here. Enormous pyramids. Like imagine Egypt on steroids. These pyramids are a mile high, made out of rock. Huge spears of rock, bigger than skyscrapers. And the spears are so common that the first Zulu people who saw these mountains said, oh, it looks like a barrier of spears. It looked like this barrier made of spears. You just couldn't pass the spears. And so they called it Ukahlamba, which in the Zulu language means barrier of spears. And the first Europeans to see it thought, it looks like dragons could live in these berg, because berg, like iceberg, means mountain. So let's call it the Drakensberg, the Dragon Mountain, the Drakensberg Mountains. Now, if you pictured what I just described, I'm not saying you have 100%, but a lot of information is going to be in your mind if you've imagined it. And I'm quickly going to go through it. So how many continents were there? Oh, well, it was one. Shape of Pangea, that's right. To which continent? South America and Africa helped with the formation of these mountains. What's in the middle of Africa? Oh, the ocean. It evaporates. There's the sandstone. Oh, yes, because the sea sandstone, it's orange, yellow, and white. Yeah, you got that. Then when the continents separate, what happens to Africa? The crust splits. What pours out? Basalt, okay? How thick was that? Oh, yeah, 2 kilometers, 2.5 times the height of the Burj Khalifa. It stretched where? Oh, to Ethiopia and the place that the Zulu people come from in South Africa. Then what ate away the mountains? The rain, that's right. The sandstones now got caves, that's right. Who used them? The people made of sand. Oh, it's the sand people. They also call themselves the Bushmen. They use it for shelter. What else? Oh, they dance. Oh, religious ceremonies. What are they doing on the walls? Oh, that rock art. They paint. What's the number one thing they painted? That's right, this antelope with a honey-colored skin, okay, called an eland, because they thought it was holy. Now, what's in the dark grey cap above? Well, I know it got huge cliffs. Egypt on oh, yeah, that's right, the pyramids. Spears of rock. In fact, the Zulu, that's right, they thought it looked like a what? A barrier of spears. Now, notice, most of you will get this wrong. So what did the Zulu people call it? Ukahlamba. I'll get there in a second, but most of you didn't get that, okay? And then what did the first Europeans think? Drakensberg Mountains. Okay, now notice, if you didn't get Ukahlamba, that's not too surprising, because if you don't speak isiZulu, or Siswati, it doesn't make a picture. Only the stuff that's made a picture is easy to remember, but the word, the sound, Ukahlamba, is quite easy to forget. But everything that turns into a picture has been easy to remember. And you've recalled 80% of the data after hearing it once. You do not need to go through it repetitively, because what's happened is it's almost as if you were there when the mountains formed. Your brain has almost witnessed the sensory experience of the mountains forming, and you're sitting on an 85% without any work. Your work is to deal with the other 15% that's harder. It's like, oh, Ukahlamba. It was 182 million years ago. There were 40,000 items of rock art, those bits that aren't so easy to picture. But the big advice in terms of studying actively is quite a simple one. And that is, if it is possible to imagine the work so that you're almost there, do it. When you're reading about the business principles that they're saying, when they say management works on these bases, make sure you're actually imagining a manager doing the stuff that the work is talking about. It's what you do when you read Harry Potter. You read the book, you hallucinate what the words are speaking about, and you remember the plot afterwards. You don't remember the words. No one can recite the whole of Harry Potter, but you can tell me the plot because you've pictured in the same way, going through your geography, your biology, your history, your business economics, a lot of subjects. If you imagine what the words are describing, you won't even know why, but it'll stick easier. Now, memory can be expanded a lot. So, for instance, your science, your maths, your accounting, some subjects don't allow what I've just described very easily. Of course, I teach people how they can deal with that. I teach people how do you deal with information that isn't so easy to picture. But that is something that you're going to have to attend my course to learn, because I don't give the whole cow away free. I sell the milk. Okay, so there you go. You've had a little bit of a taste of hopefully some good dairy. But if I'm going to summarize the lesson from today, studying must be active, which means you've got to force yourself to think about things. How can you do that faster? You can quick read by killing that voice slightly so that you're going that much faster, and taking key notes in which you change words but keep the meaning the same. And more important than anything, make sure that the information that you're looking at is turning into an image or sensory experience in your mind, because that automatically stimulates more of your nerves and it increases your memory and your comprehension. See how useful active study is. So those things will all help you. And this being said, I hope lots of you are going to sign up for my Easy Cheater Study Skills class. It is one of the most respected study skills classes in the world, because I'm the only one who's allowed to teach the stuff, certainly at the moment. So get in touch with me. My number is +27 7285 6746, which actually spells +27 Paul Tozio. Or you can get in touch with me by the website www.easycheater.com. Accelerate your learning with Easy Cheater. Cheaters outclass cheaters.